In today's show, more stray thoughts from the Blazers' first two preseason games, including some praise for Toumani Camara, who might have been the Blazers' best player in the exhibition season. Plus, can Deandre Ayton get historic? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making the show your first listen. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make your first listen and tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. The Blazers played two preseason games over the weekend. In yesterday's show, that's Monday, October 14th program, we talked Scoot Henderson, Deni Avdija, and a little bit of Donovan Clingan. If you want to hear those thoughts, go back and listen to this one earlier in your feed, or if you're a YouTube listener, I guess it's also in your feed, but the video right before this one, if you're an audio listener, right, the show right before this one in your feed. Today's show, we're going to kind of catch up on the rest of the stray thoughts, the rest of the roster. I want to give praise to Toumani Camara, who's absolutely earned it through two preseason games. He's been really good. He's a all capital letters dude who can help, and he has showed that he can be a dude who can help. I want to talk Deandre Ayton and a historic change in his approach, or at least a potentially historic change in his approach. And then thoughts on Chris Murray. I got thoughts on Rayan Rupert, and I got thoughts on the necessity of Jerami Grant's game, which maybe isn't aesthetically pleasing, but will be necessary for the Blazers just because of how this thing works. Let's start with Toumani. I think Toumani's been the standout player from preseason. Has he been their best player? Probably, right? Probably. It might be Deandre Ayton, but the player that has popped when you watch them play, the player that you've said, obviously when you watch him, like, that dude's playing, is Toumani Camara. Toumani Kamara's I'm a big Toumani believer. I believe there's a mailbag episode over the offseason. Somebody asked, like, who's the non-starter on the Blazers team who would get minutes in the playoffs? I said Toumani Camara, because he can help. Like, he has the game that can help. He can defend in multiple positions. He's a pretty good rebounder. He shot it really well, or shot well the second half of the season on low volume. But, like, you know, he has the skills that he would help good teams. Blazers might not be that stage yet. They might not be the good team winning in the playoff stage yet, but in your quest to find stars, if you uncover very solid role players, that is just wonderful along the way, and the Blazers seem to have done that with Toumani Camara. He's just a helpful, good basketball player. I think you saw it right away against the Clippers on Friday night. He's guarding James Harden. Now, he committed 2 fouls in the first quarter and, like, quote-unquote foul trouble, but, like, the aggressiveness guarding James Harden, the attentiveness, saying this dude wants to go left, or, you know, go right, step back to his left, or drive left. Like, he just a really strong understanding of personnel, the activity on defense. You know, he made some shots, and it's always better when the ball goes in, but just the activity, the willingness to cut, the willingness to go chase rebounds, the activity on the defensive end as an off-ball guy, as particularly as an on-ball guy. On Sunday, you know, Friday night he gets the James Harden assignment. Sunday he gets the De'Aaron Fox assignment. It's like, okay, who's the best player on the other team? Go guard him. And Toumani can guard pretty comfortably 1 through 4, which allows him some lineup versatility. I think functionally he's playing what you would call shooting guard, which maybe limits the sort of overall amount of shooting that the Blazers have, but it's not like they have a ton, as currently constructed, it's not like they have a ton of lineups that can shoot, but Toumani is so comfortable just like playing amorphous basketball player. If you need him on the court, he can guard a bunch of positions. He can make a bunch of plays. He can play 2. He can play 3. He can play a little bit of 4. He's physical. He's clearly, I don't know how much bigger he is. He said that he probably put on between 5 and 10 pounds of muscle, but like he just looks bigger. He said that at media day, and muscle watch is kind of silly to me, but like, yeah, he just looks bigger and stronger. That's gonna be huge for him because he might end up playing some minutes where he is the bigger forward. He is the functionally the power forward, but like, his defensive versatility, his activity on offense, and ball has gone in, and the jump shot has looked pretty good in preseason. Like, I think he's been the Blazers' standout performer. The only reason that, I wasn't like tooting his horn necessarily is because I kind of think Toumani is this good. I think I've called him a bunch of times the best part of last season, right? The player they discovered that was like, yeah, this guy can be around and be part of any version of a team. You can play any style with Toumani Kamara and he can help you. But the Blazers want to play fast, and it's clear from the first 2 preseason games that they are attempting to play a little bit faster. They're not like speed racing up and down the court, but his ability to get out and transition against the Kings, he missed a couple of transition layups, but like his willingness to push, and I think you saw that against the Clippers, especially in that game, his willingness and ability to say, okay, we're going to get it and we get to go. I'd love to go shot out of a cannon to Toumani Kamara. Like, it's just, he's been my expectations were that he would be a good basketball player because I think he's a good basketball player, and he has met those expectations as a good basketball player. Undeniable. He's just been solid. He can really help. Again, I think what is sort of the difference between stars and role players in the league to some extent, and this is maybe not universal, but I think it's a relatively good way to think about it, is like, stars, you can give them the ball and they go score, but like, how many dudes are primary option offensive wings in the NBA? It's a short list. It's a short list of like, hey, get the ball and go score as our primary creator. It's not a lot of dudes. I don't think Toumani has that skill set. His early bucket against the Kings, he drove on De'Aaron Fox, spun, De'Aaron Fox kind of knocks the ball away, Toumani stays with it, physical, finishes in the paint. Just like determined, head down, but like not exactly like a fluid, awesome dribble move. I don't think that he's ever going to be like get the ball and go type of offensive wing. I don't think he's going to be that. He might always be a role player, but he has the skills to be a very high-end role player. And shoot, 85% of the league is role players, maybe more than that. Most of the league are dudes who are filling a role, and Toumani seems to be able to fill a variety of roles at a very high level, a useful player that you're going to want to have around. I mentioned that Toumani was not maybe the standout relative to my expectations. I would say in game 1, relative to my personal, Mike Richman's personal expectations, I thought Rayan Rupert vastly exceeded them. Whereas I thought Toumani, like, this dude can hoop, so of course he's hooping, type of thing. Like, Rupert, I thought he struggled a little bit in year 1, second round pick who's a teenager, right? Like, he's just obviously going to be a project, right? So I had relatively low expectations, and I think he shot the ball a lot better than I thought he would as a rookie. He wasn't built as a shooter, and that was probably his best skill on offense. But I didn't think he had a very good summer league. I think he looked kind of rocky in summer league, so I had relatively low expectations. The Blazers they're deep if you consider like their similar skilled wings, right? They don't have a bunch of like easy separators. Like Denny and Jerami are a little bit better than everybody else, and then Toumani is better than everyone else, and then it's Jabari and Matisse and Chris and Rayan Rupert, and it's like a lot of guys who are if somebody has it going, maybe it's their night and they like quote unquote deserve playing time, right? But they have a relatively sort of deep core of like dudes who could maybe help if they put it together. And Rupert, I think, was, for me, towards the low end of that dudes who could help if they maybe put it together list. And then he came out on Friday night and had a couple spin back moves where he, drove to the paint with his left hand and then spun back to his offhand, his right hand, to get a little like paint short jump shot going. Dribble moves. I would say like his fluidity as a ball handler has really stood out to me. Relative to expectations, I would say in game 1, he was my biggest surprise. That's like, I don't mean to be damning with faint praise. I just mean like I had low expectations for Rayan Rupert, and then I was like, he might have been, he was one of the better guys who showed up in game 1. He was one of the 5 best players, maybe, or one of the 5 most impressive players. I thought he was really solid. Defensive activity. Chauncey Billups praised his full court pressure as helping change the game against the Clippers when they thought it was kind of slipping away from them a little bit in the first half. I thought he was good there. I think he was active on defense against the Kings. He wasn't as good on Sunday's game as he was on Friday. Like to be clear. It's kind of it's how it works. The Blazers were so balanced scoring on Sunday against the Kings. They just beat the snot out of the Kings. But they were so balanced scoring that there wasn't somebody who like deeply stood out. But Rupert struggled a little bit more in that game. But his defensive activity, his willingness to play as a full court pressure type guy, which full court pressure type guy, his willingness to apply full court pressure in the way that Toumani does. They have another guy who's willing and capable of doing that. He's poking the ball away a little bit from guards, like he's using his length. He's always probably been a little bit further along on defense than offense, but I think the fluidity of his handle and his jump shot, while it didn't go in on Sunday, it still looks fine. Like I don't think Rupert's probably going to play to begin the year. I think he's out of the rotation. But like, I think if you're just looking at young guys in preseason, right? Did he improve from the last time we saw him? Undoubtedly. Rayan Rupert is better in October than he was in July. And then that's what you want to see from young guys, right? The arrow, it doesn't always point perfectly straight up. Like development is neither linear nor guaranteed. And so like, there's going to be ups and downs with the Rupert's game, but I thought in the first 2 preseason games, it's like, oh yeah, he's noticeably better at some things that he need to improve, namely the ball handling. My favorite play of his was just in transition. It was like a loose ball that he scooped up in transition, and Delano Banton went to the opposite wing, and he was and Rupert was on the left wing, and it was a 3-on-2 or 3-on-3, but two defenders actually back for the Kings, and Rupert just saw it quickly, processed, throw it across court to Banton, who hit the 3. It was just a smart, simple pass, but it's make the play in transition, get your head up, make the right decision. Like, that's just good stuff from a young player. Obviously, like, simple doesn't really stand out. It's like a very basic assist, but it's just like the type of play where it's like, you did the thing they needed you to do, and it worked out. And it was activity on defense, jumping on a loose ball, and then making very simple, smart plays in transition offense. I think Rupert's been he's improved. I think undoubtedly better in October than he was in July. Okay, let's talk Deandre Ayton. I teased it at the beginning of the show, but can Deandre Ayton get historic? And I think Deandre Ayton's been darn good in preseason. Let's talk about DA in the second segment. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, let me tell you about Gametime. It's the app that's going to reward you for procrastinating. They got tickets to everything: sports, concerts, comedy, live theater. Plus, they got Gametime picks, where they curate picks to make it even easier to save on sports. So when you open up the app, you just look for the little Gametime icon in whatever venue that you're looking for. Say you're searching for tickets at the Moda Center coming up games here when we get rolling in the season in a couple weeks or 10 days. You look for Gametime picks, look for the little icon. You can say, I want to sit close. They'll curate picks close. You want to save a little money, sit further away. Even easier. It's all going to be simple for you. Plus, I like to toggle in all-in pricing. So when I'm browsing the Moda Center, when I'm browsing the venue, what you see is what you get. There's a total upfront cost with no surprises at checkout. Gametime's going to help you take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first order. That's, terms apply. Create an account. Use the redemption code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right. Deandre Ayton has been good in the preseason. Let's just start right there. He's been good. I was again, if you didn't listen to yesterday's show, you should, because recapping some other stuff from these preseason games. But I was at the game in Seattle, and press row was low enough down to the floor that you could appreciate how physical Deandre Ayton was playing. It was like he was battling Ivica Zubac, who's one of the most physical centers in the league. He was Zoo and Da were hand fighting. They were using, pushing each other with their arms, with their hips, with their shoulders. It was a physical game, and Da was getting after it. I think it's a little bit lazy when people say Deandre Ayton doesn't play hard. I think that is a lazy analysis of his game. I don't actually really think that is all that. I would say that is rarely his problem. Most of DA's problem is skill stuff. It's like actual basketball ability. He plays hard for the most part. Like being out of position on defense is mostly an anticipation thing, not an effort thing. And that doesn't happen all the time. Oftentimes he's there, but he's just like not a natural shot blocker, but he's got good hands. He can be disruptive in passing lanes, probably better at disrupting the passing lanes than he is as like a true rim protector. He moves his feet and competes on defense. He's physical against centers. I think it is a lazy analysis to call Deandre Ayton lazy. You are the lazy one. Some of his limitations are just skills. Like he's a play finisher. He doesn't really put the ball on the floor. He's not a great passer, but his issue isn't motor. More often than not, his issue isn't motor. To wit, against the Kings, all of his points came off just crashing the offensive glass. He got his work done by being aggressive, chasing the ball at the rim, hustling. He scored against the Kings by hustling. So he's really physical, and I thought he played darn well against the Clippers, and he made 2 threes. More on that in a moment. But against the Kings on Sunday, he scored because he was physical, going to the rim, bodying Domantas Sabonis. He's physical, going to the rim, getting the Kings out the paint, and the Kings don't have a super big front line. And so what did Deandre Ayton do? Said, "I'm the biggest, most physical dude out here. I'm going to play like it." He was good. He's been good. I think he's been good in preseason. He has only played the first half of games and not the second half because him and Jerami Grant get the veteran treatment of not having to play after halftime. Totally earned and fine. Like, he doesn't need a cajillion minutes. He's going to play a lot of minutes, like 30 some a night when the season starts, and they really need him. And to one of my friends, you know who you are, who sent me a text message after Donovan Clingan's first shift against the Kings, where he was good. He had like 5 and 5 with a block, something like that. And my friend sent me a text message that said, Donovan Clingan is the best center on the roster. No, he's not. Chill. DA is still the best center on the roster. Like, if you're just trying to win a basketball game, he is by far your best option in the middle. Like, he has some stuff that he can't do. And I'm pretty much a well-documented DeAndre Ayton skeptic, but he's good at stuff. Like, he's capable. His issue is mostly just skill stuff. He's bringing it, and there were times last year with the Blazers, to be sure, that he wasn't bringing it in preseason and the whole second half of last season, or once he kind of got his rhythm going after he came back from injury in the ice storm, his first couple games. Anything that was a problem with his game was not about effort. It was not about playing hard or trying. It was about skill stuff. And part of the skill stuff is expanding his range. DeAndre Ayton is a freaking awesome shooter. He's one of the best mid-range shooters ever. Like, but depending on how you want to slice it, he is one of the best mid-range jump shooters ever in the history of the NBA ever. That's how good he is from those spots. He usually needs help to get his shot, right? Like, he scores mostly assisted buckets and all of those things. But he's a great shooter. And so there's been some talk about him as expanding his range. And then against the Clippers, in the first night of the preseason, he hits 2 threes. Not only did he attempt 2 threes, he made them both. And then you start to believe. And I'm just to so you can see the consistency. I'm kind of anti Donovan Clingan shooting threes because I don't think he's a good shooter and he can do other things. I'm very much pro DeAndre Ayton shooting threes because he's a really good jump shooter. And threes are worth 50% more points. But he doesn't have to bomb away from 3. But if he were to even increase his 3-point, if he was to be more prolific from 3 to the tune of what is, I'd say, reasonable, right? Say he were to take 3 3-pointers a game. To be clear, he took 10 all of last season. 10 all of last season. He's taken 90 in his 6-year NBA career. Now, he missed a big chunk of one season, so let's call it 90 due to suspension and injuries. Let's call it 5 seasons. Across 5 seasons, DA has taken 93s. So if he were to take 3 a game, that's massive, right? Like, that's massive. And how massive? This would be a historic increase, according to Todd Whitehead, who is an analyst for Synergy Sports, which is like a data tracking and analytics firm that's used across the league and ends up and down the whole basketball world. And Todd does really good work. He has a really, really great eye for making somewhat complex things very simple. He's great with data visualizations. Like, he's really good. Todd is at Crumpled Jumper on Twitter, but like, follow his work. He's really good. He had a stat that he shared with the largest year-to-year increase in 3-point rates among bigs, which is minimum 500 minutes played in each of the 2 consecutive seasons. So it's like, you play 500 minutes, you play 500 minutes next season. Who took the biggest jump in per minute 3-point shooting? The biggest jump ever, unsurprisingly, is Brook Lopez, who made the jump in the 2016-2017 season, taking 6 more threes per 36 minutes. All of a sudden, just started bombing away from 3. But even if you go further down the list, guys like Marc Gasol or Karl Anthony Towns or Aaron Baines, I think Baines and Gasol are pretty good examples of this, or maybe Cousins if you're thinking about DeAndre Ayton, or guys who are like, yeah, he has good range, and now all of a sudden he's shooting threes. DeMarcus Cousins is the last name on this list. He's at 15. His increase during the 2015-16 season from year to year, he increased 3.3 attempts per 36 minutes. So that would mean if DA was to take 3 threes a night, right? He took 2 against the Clippers and then 1 against the Kings that he airballed. But say you were to take 3 threes a night. He's cut out some of the 19-footers and replaced them with 22-footers. We're talking historic level increase. Historic level increase. Even outside of his own, like, taking 93s in 6 seasons. If you were to take 3 per 36, and he's going to play about 33 minutes a night, so that's roughly a game. We'll call it 2.8 per game for him. If he were to just shy of 3 attempts per game. Last year, he took 0.2 threes per 36 minutes because he took 10 total all year long. But he missed 30 games. But, like, it would be... I would say my hope that DA starts to be someone who launches threes when I saw this stat was like, oh yeah, that's pretty unlikely. It's pretty unlikely. Pretty unlikely. He would have to get, it would be a historic increase in 3-point rate for him to make that change. All of that is to say, and I think that's an interesting sort of stat and puts things in perspective to like someone like me who's like, he's got to shoot threes. I might be asking too much. I might be asking too much is what I'm going to say. I still think DA can be helpful, and I still think he's far and away the best big on the team. He's really useful as just a big body on defense, although he's not like a high-level defender. He can be, and I think he hasn't been this yet because of Scoot's own struggles, and I thought him and Denny didn't have very good chemistry, but we haven't seen Anthony Simons, who's their best pick-and-roll operator. Like, I think he can be a really useful pick-and-roll partner because of the shooting. And I think if he continues this garbage man act that we've seen, and he's always been a good putback guy, and if he can continue to be that, it's like DA just has value. I might not always love the way he plays, and I'm probably going to still be a Deandre Ayton doubter, but I think watching in these first 2 games and like putting him in the context of the rest of this young team trying to figure it out, it's like, yeah, DA's good. He's their best center by a lot. So my friend who texted me, you know who you are if you're listening. I know you're listening, and you know who you are. No. DA's the best center on the roster. It's not close. And he has some real useful stuff. He does some valuable things, even if maybe I don't always if I am maybe not as a high level appreciator as some. I can admit my own flaws here. Okay. Let's talk Kris Murray. And let's talk the necessity of Jerami Grant to close the show. Join me in that third segment, won't you? First, though, I want to tell you about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book, and they're making it easier for you to bet on NFL games, live games, whenever you want to. Well, to bet on live games, they'd have to be during the game. I'm actually recording this during Monday Night Football, but if you are watching football later this week on Thursday or on Sunday, you're watching any NFL games, you got a hunch in the middle of the game. Well, you can open up the FanDuel app, and on the same page where you place your bets, you're also going to be able to see live stats, live play-by-play, and so much more, so you can be an up-to-the-second informed wagerer. Plus, if you're a new user to FanDuel, you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bets. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and that's FanDuel.com. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. So let's talk Kris Murray. I think Kris Murray, he had a pretty bumpy summer league. And I think I have been clear in my Kris Murray take, but I'll repeat it here for new listeners. Every Locked On Blazers is someone's first Locked On Blazers. Like, Murray has some defensive. He has enough defensive versatility, enough size with like a little bit of ball handling and a little bit of passing that if he could just figure out what he did on offense, he has a path to being an impactful player. It's just in year 1, he was really bad on offense. Like, he just didn't do anything. He really struggled to shoot the ball. Clearly became like a mental thing for him where it was like he was okay, I got to shoot it, and thinking about all of his shots, got to make this, got to do all these things, thinking about all of his shots. But like, And then he gets to Summer League, and he just really struggled in Summer League. And he kind of he had one nice game in Summer League, to be sure, but it's like for the most part across 4 games he struggled. And it was clear watching him in Vegas that he was just it was that frustration. You could see him getting mad. There's a moment that stands out to me where it's like Donovan Clingan made a nice pass to him, and Kris Murray caught the pass, took the right shot, missed it badly, and then DC wanted to go give him a high five, like, hey man, good, that's the right shot, way to play. And Kris didn't give him a high five because he's mad, right? Because he's frustrated. And it's like, oh man, it's tough to see a dude like just be. You can see him actively be hard on himself, right? Like actively be hard on himself. But all that said, like he's toolsy, right? Like he's the right size to be a versatile defender in the league. For someone his size, he's got a decent handle. He has a good sense of how, he's not like a high level passer, but like clearly he reads the floor and reads the game quickly. His teammates have praised him, and the coaches, particularly Chauncey Billups, praised him about just like picking stuff up, particularly defensive concepts up really quickly. Like he's got stuff if he could put it together. He's just a long way away on offense. And I thought he was pretty good in game one. But I want to mention something that happened in game two that gives me some hope for Kris Murray. The first shot he took, wide open, in the right corner, hit the side of the backboard. Oh no. Like we've seen him miss like ugly misses, right? Like shots where it seems like he's aiming it, not shooting it. It's ugly misses. And after a pretty solid game one, to see him do that right at the beginning of the second exhibition game was like, oh, dang it, Kris, like back at it again. Second time he gets the ball, he misses a shot inside, trying to score at the rim. I think he thought he got fouled, but no call, and then missed the rim. So he's now missed a wide open three and a layup. But he stayed aggressive. He stayed smart about the plays he made, and he made two really nice plays that I enjoyed from Kris Murray. One, he caught it in the three and caught it in the corner, took a no dip three, and by that I mean he caught it, kept it above his chest, and went straight up with it. Like didn't bring it back down, dip, and try to get his feet under him and like think about it and shoot. Caught it, kept it high, shoot it. Quick release, corner three, cash. Looks good because it goes in, but just the willingness to shoot quickly without thinking. Catch, shoot. That's the right shot. Take it. And then it's a little bit later in the game, he missed top of the key three, coming off like a handoff, curling up to the top of the key, but kind of a movement three. He didn't look great, missed it. But then he catches it in the corner. They close out hard. He sees the closeout. I believe it was Keon Ellis who closed out to him. He's a pretty good defender for the Kings, but he's smaller than Kris. And Kris pump fakes, shows him his eyebrows, shows him the ball, and steps past him, uses his size to get right past him quickly, gets into the paint, finishes. He's dribbling with his left hand, was able to finish with, I believe, with his right hand as he went up. Just like for Kris, so much of his game is confidence, because I think he's got some stuff. It's just, can he translate the stuff to having some on-court success? He's gonna have some limitations. He's not a crazy good athlete, so like he's not this like, he doesn't have this crazy burst, and I think that sometimes is a struggle for him around the rim. He's pretty left-handed, so like getting to his right hand and his offhand is a little bit hard, but like shooting with confidence, looking to take shots, and I think that was what I liked about him in game 1 too. Shooting with confidence, looking like an NBA ready player, making the right plays. That's so big for him. That's so big for him just to play the right way. He wasn't super great. In either of these games. And again, I think he's probably out of the rotation when the season starts. And this is kind of the whole thing with the Blazers. They have a lot of similarly skilled players. If Matisse Thybulle isn't ready to go, I wouldn't be surprised if Kris plays, right? Like obviously Jabari Walker came up with a limping left game 2 with a limp. So like if he's not available, then Kris slides up in the rotation, all these things. There's space for him to play. But if you assume that they're mostly healthy, I think Kris is probably out of the rotation on night 1. But like I said, similarly skilled wings. They got a lot of dudes who probably can help, and Kris is trending towards the probably can help, or at least in line to deserve an opportunity when it comes. And if he continues to play with confidence, it heads in the right direction. He hasn't been fantastic, but I think he looks better. Same with Rayan Rupert. I think Kris looks better in October than he did in July, and that's what you want to see with young guys, is get better each time you see him, although with the understanding about how development works. Okay, real quick. Actually, I'll do this at normal speed, but I'm trying to not stretch these episodes too long for you. Jerami Grant can help the Trailblazers, but the aesthetics of his game are going to be a challenge this year. I think that's just the truth about watching this team. He had some plays against the Clippers where it's like, that is quite a shot, my friend. Like, he's just forcing shots and taking tough 19-footers. And the aesthetics of his game are not pleasing, right? Sometimes you can just tell by his body language he's going to shoot it no matter what. He's taking really hard mid-range jumpers. But he's one of the Blazers' best shooters. He's one of the Blazers' best scorers. He is at worst their second best offensive player. he's going to play a ton of minutes. They need him. He hasn't been playing in the second half of these games because they know they're going to need him. They're big minute vets, right? They're going to need JG. Like it's just the truth of it. I think the challenge with Jerami Grant as sort of for the viewing public is some of the stuff that Jerami does is a little bit frustrating. His decision making is a little frustrating, but I think even the ugly stuff, the aesthetically displeasing stuff, they're going to need, because as I mentioned with Toumani, they don't have too many dudes you can throw it to and say, we need a bucket. And I don't know that Denny Avdia is ready for that as a half-court player just yet in his game, right? Like, that's not Denny's strength. Connective passing, playing in transition, defending. But, like, in terms of just, like, throw you the ball, can you go score? Jerami is on the short list of dudes who can do that. I think it might be him and Anthony Simons. And in a lot of lineups, it's only going to be Jerami. So I think there is a necessity of Jerami Grant that's just going to be part of the reality of this team. They don't have a lot of guys who can score, go get a shot on their own. And they, in a perfect world, they play like the 2014 Spurs, right? Where everybody touches it and the ball pings around and the sum of the sum is so much greater than its parts because they share the ball and it's beautiful basketball and all those things. I don't think they have enough plus passers to pull that off, certainly not at the 2014 Spurs level, but they just I think that is an ideal that is really nice to think about, and boy, would it be fun to watch if they played that way. But I don't think they have the skill sets, and I don't think they currently have a system that is going to really lend itself to that. And I think, to be clear, that's much more skill than coaching, that specific aspect of their challenge. So the ball's just not going to whip around. They could pass the ball more, for sure. They can move more, for sure. But like in terms of like the sort of the beautiful game, pass, cut, screen, back cut, blah, 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 like the really high level version of that. There's never going to be that. So they're going to have times when it's like, okay, well, that didn't work. How do we score? And it's going to be Jerami. He's going to be the answer to it. It's just going to be the necessity of some ugly Jerami Grant plays because they just don't have enough dudes who you can get the ball to in a, okay, it's broken down, somebody's got to go to work type of offense. In a perfect world, the first and secondary stuff works to where you get a more egalitarian approach and just like you kind of make the defense takes stuff away and you get to the next thing and you stay a step ahead to get into better shots and there isn't a pecking order. But the reality of it is that it's with the number of dudes who can really dribble and the number of dudes who can really pass, the Blazers are going to have some clunky offensive nights and they're just going to need Jerami Grant to bail them out. And so I watched the first two games and Jerami's fine. You look at his box score, he's fine. But like watching the aesthetics of his game, there's some shots where it's like, okay, that was a lot. And I think there's going to be that this year. But I think there's just the necessity and reality of Jerami Grant as the Blazers are going to need him to bail them out a little bit and to create some stuff. And so, like, I think part of it is just taking a deep breath and saying, okay, that's the necessity of Jerami Grant. Hopefully they can get into something better next time down the court. But often, ugly Jerami Grant shots might be the best shot they can get because of just what the roster is like. Okay, that's going to do it for today's show. Tell your friends about the program. We will come back and do it tomorrow. One of these next 2 days is going to be a mailbag show. Blazers play Wednesday and Friday, their final two preseason games. Wednesday against a German team with a couple NBA draft prospects I'll talk about in tomorrow's show. So look for likely Friday show to be a mailbag show. If you want to send me a mailbag question and you made it this far in the episode, lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com. Send me some thoughts or a question that you've got. And if it's a good one, I will include it in the show. Tell your friends about the program. 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.